Donald Trump deserves to have the team that he wants on day one. And it shouldn't be dragged out. It shouldn't be delayed. Get to the hearings starting the first week of January when the new Congress assembles. Let's get through it and let this president do what the American people want him to do. Yesterday, Pete Hegseth and his entire team went on the offensive and really, I think, had a pretty good strategic day when it comes to salvaging his nomination for the Pentagon to be Secretary of Defense. You see, he's got a simple notion that he's trying to communicate to the rest of this country and specifically to the Republican senators on Capitol Hill, and that is Donald Trump won the election and he has the right to pick the cabinet that he wants to work with. It's that simple. And Donald Trump did everything he was supposed to do. He won the election by a hefty margin. He also helped senators build their majority in the Senate to the tune of 53 seats. They started with 49 in the minority, and he selected his cabinet members in lightning speed, like within 2 weeks of the election. So now the Senate just has to do their job. And well, they seem to be standing in the way of Donald Trump having the team that he wants on day one. So Pete Hegseth is now defending himself, but even better, going on the offensive and talking about how they're using the exact same tactics, anonymous rumors and innuendo and gossip, the same tactics they used against Brett Kavanaugh, they're trying to use against Pete Hegseth. He went on Megyn Kelly's podcast and said just that. Here it is.
Do you think you're being Kavanaugh'd right now?
I had a member not 45 minutes ago look me in the eye in private, just he and I, and say, that's what they're trying to do to you. That's what they're trying to do to you. That's their playbook. Get ready for more. And they're going to make it up, just like they have so far. All anonymous, all innuendo, all rumor, nothing sourced, no verification. And they're just going to keep doing it because you're a threat to them. You're a threat to their system. You're a threat to all the things in Washington, D.C., the swamp, the things that people have rejected. You're a threat to that. And so they're coming after you. And I know that. He knows that. And when you stand firm on that, it's not difficult to just continue to fight. So yeah, we saw what happened, but guess what happened? Kavanaugh stood up and he fought and he won. And hopefully Republicans have learned that lesson.
And Trump stood by him.
And Trump stood by him. What you're seeing right now with me is the art of the smear. It is the classic art of the smear. Take whatever tiny kernels of truth, and there are tiny, tiny ones in there, and blow them up into a masquerade of a narrative about somebody that I am definitely not. And what they never quote, and we'll get into this too, are the legions of people from who I served with in combat, multiple tours, from the multiple veterans organizations that I very proudly ran, and I really want to get into that, and my time at Fox News. They never asked the people closest to me.
No.
They never asked the people who were involved directly. And when they do, and I've got a list right here of people, and Will Cain and my hosts at Fox News have come out, all the folks on Fox Friends have all come out and said, this is not Pete. And we've worked with Pete for 10 years, every single morning, every single day. They never ask those people.
Yeah.
And that's what a smear looks like.
That is exactly what a smear looks like. And by the way, listen, I don't know Pete Hegseth, never worked with him, never talked to him, never interviewed him, never been interviewed by him. So I'm not sitting here saying, Pete Hegseth, none of this is true. And I don't know. But I think it is informative that all of these people who worked with him at Fox News, who have high profiles, they're public personalities, they have careers, they're willing to stake their names, their faces, their reputations, and their credibility on the line. They're staking that and saying, no, this is not Pete Hegseth. These are lies. And what's being said about Pete Hegseth, what are they actually pushing back against and denying is true? Anonymous innuendos, anonymous attacks, anonymous things. So the people who are making these accusations against Pete Hegseth, they are not putting their names on the line. They're not putting their reputations and their careers on the line. They are not willing to come forward and say it with everyone knowing who they are making these accusations. Now, I think that's pretty informative these days. I think that tells me something. You got one side willing to stake their names and reputations, and you got the other side hiding in the shadows saying, oh, no, he did this. I just don't want to stake my name and career and reputation on it. Now, that doesn't mean that one side's telling the truth and the other side isn't, although I guess by definition, one side is telling the truth and the other side isn't. I'm not telling you who is. I'm just telling you that when you're trying to determine who has credibility here, the people who are not hiding in the shadows and not concealing their names, usually, well, that should count for something. So that was a very smart tactic there to remind everybody what they did to Brett Kavanaugh, and Brett Kavanaugh fought just like Pete Hegseth is doing, and Brett Kavanaugh ultimately won. And it was in front of the exact same body of jurists that you're looking at right now. The jurors in this case are the Republican senators. They've got to be in line, and he can't afford to lose more than 3 of those Republican senators. So it's a smart tactic, number one, to remind everyone about Kavanaugh. It was another smart tactic that you just saw there for him to say, this isn't about me. This is about me personally. They're trying to stop me because I'm going to advance Trump's reform agenda in the Pentagon. That's smart too. Make it about the policy, make it about Trump, make it about his agenda, and not make it about yourself personally. One other very smart tactic when you're trying to ingratiate yourself and win support amongst Republicans is to go after the media. And he did that too yesterday, right to their faces.
And I'm proud of what I fought for. I'm not going to back down from them one bit. I will answer all of these senators' questions, but this will not be a process tried in the media. I don't answer to anyone in this group. None of you, not to that camera at all. I answer to President Trump, who received 76 million votes on behalf and a mandate for change. I answer to the 100 senators who are part of this process and those in the committee. And I answer to my Lord and Savior and my wife and my family. I'm proud to be here. And as long as Donald Trump wants me in this fight, I'm going to be standing right here in this fight, fighting to bring our Pentagon back to what it needs to be.
All right. So that's very, very smart too, and good for him. I love that he went right after the media. He talked to them in their face and said, I'm going to answer every question, but not your questions. This is not about you. It's not about the media. I'm not going to engage in any of this with you. But those senators who ask me questions, absolutely. I'll answer everything that they want to know. I also like the fact that he said, I don't answer to you. I answered Donald Trump, who put me here. And then he almost said the 53 senators. And then he wisely and politically said the 100 senators. But let's face it, it's really those 53 Republican senators, because Democrats are not going to be like Republicans. You see, Republicans went ahead and voted to the tune of what, 95-2. Lloyd Austin, Joe Biden's defense secretary nominee, got support in the Senate. 95-2. The 2 votes against him were Mike Lee and Josh Hawley, right? Lloyd Austin, the guy who oversaw the Afghanistan debacle, the guy who went missing in action, the guy and didn't tell his superiors or his deputy. He was just disappeared because he had a medical condition. You can't do that. Nobody in the military is allowed to do that. Lloyd Austin, the guy who has ushered in the transgender CRT DEI policies that's crippling the Pentagon's recruitment efforts right now. Yeah, that guy got 95 votes in the Senate, with all Republicans except for 2 voting for him. But Pete Hegseth here, you know, he's got to go to the mat to try to get those same Republicans to support him. Fascinating. By the way, just a word of advice again. I don't know Pete Hegseth, and you guys should make up your own mind about this. I think it's an amazing thing to watch. I'm giving you insight into the background of it and the politics and the backroom wheeling and dealing, because I think it's fascinating to watch. And it also tells you about how the Senate is going to work with Donald Trump and the new administration. This is an important fight, and Trump needs to draw a line in the sand and let those senators know, no, things are going to be different this time around, guys. Things are going to be different. I love hearing Pete Hegseth talk about the things that are most important to him and who he answers to. If I remember right, it was number 1, Donald Trump, number 2, the 100 senators, number 3, my Lord and Savior, and number 4, my wife and family. Not for nothing, Pete. And again, I don't know you. I feel like we'd be friends. If I were you, I would reorganize the pecking order there. I mean, you've got it right. Those are the 4 things that you need to worry about right now. Excuse me. But if you want to, you know, shore things up at home and have a happy life domestically, as well as, you know, maintaining your hope for salvation, you might want to just reorder the pecking order. But you do have the right 4 things that you're bearing in mind. All right. So this is already making an impact. I will show you how it's already making an impact. 2 senators' names keep getting floated around as those who are engineering what's going on here in spiking Donald Trump's nomination. Lindsey Graham and Joni Ernst. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Joni Ernst of Iowa. All right, so here's Lindsey Graham. This is Lindsey Graham on Tuesday when I think it was a Washington Post or possibly an NBC News report, 100% sourced with anonymous rumors and gossips and accusations about Pete Hegseth's drinking on the job at Fox News. And here was Lindsey Graham's immediate response to that.
Some of these articles are very disturbing. He, obviously has a chance to defend himself here, but some of this stuff is going to be difficult. Time will tell. I like Pete. I've known him for a very, very long time.
All right. So some of these reports are very, very disturbing, he said, right? These are anonymous sourced reports. And Lindsey Graham's initial reaction was, these are very disturbing. He'll have his chance to defend himself. But his initial response is, oh, this is a problem. This is a problem. 24 hours later, that same Lindsey Graham, talking about the exact same allegations against Pete Hegseth, seemed to have changed his tune a bit.
I've known Pete for a long time. I served with him in Afghanistan. The people over there said nothing but great things about him. The allegations against Pete are all anonymous sources. I am not going to make any decision based on an anonymous source. If you're not willing to raise your hand under oath and make the accusation, it doesn't count. I've heard everything about all these people. None of it counts. No rumors, no
but
innuendo.
You were there for the Kavanaugh hearings.
I've seen this movie before.
That's right. Thank you. You were there for the Kavanaugh hearings. I've seen this play out before because this is what they do. I assure you, Lindsey Graham, and I don't mean to target him specifically, but he happens to be right here. Hey, Lindsey Graham does not want to set the precedent that your career can be ruined based on anonymous leaks and innuendo published by NBC News. I promise you that's the last thing Lindsey Graham wants as the new standard. Or for that matter, any senator. Listen, you want to come before our committee, swear under oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and make accusations against this nominee for Secretary of Defense, we'll welcome you if it's credible, if it checks out. But otherwise, every single senator should be saying the president won the election. He won the Electoral College. He won every single battleground state overwhelmingly. He did and this is against all of the convictions and the assassination attempts and calling him Hitler and calling him a racist and trying to keep him off the ballot and the Mar-a-Lago raid and all of the things they did to him. And he won. He did everything that was asked of him as a political figure and as a man running for office. He run every battleground state, and it wasn't even close. He won the popular vote, something that George W. Bush only did once, and it was 20 years ago. No other Republican's been able to do that. Before George W. Bush, you have to go all the way back to 1988 to find a Republican who did that. But he did. Donald Trump did, and he helped these senators not just get the majority, but have a nice cushion of a majority. John Thune, the senator from South Dakota, is now the majority leader starting the first week of January. Not the minority leader, the majority leader. Why isn't he leading here? He should be telling every single Republican senator, listen, you have the right to advice and consent here. But your default position, if anybody asks, should be, yeah, I'm going to confirm Pete Hegseth. I'm going to confirm everybody that Donald Trump put in front of me, unless I see something during the hearings that would change my mind. But as of now, he is a yes. The default position should not be, well, let's wait and see if Pete Hegseth can impress me. I'm not a yes, I'm not a no. Let's see if Pete Hegseth can jump through these hoops for me. Let's see if he brings something to the table here, right? And I assure you, if you ask them right now, are you a yes or a no on Marco Rubio? They'll all say, oh, of course we're a yes on Marco Rubio. Why? Because he was in the Senate. And they all defer to their colleagues in the Senate. Well, that deference should be paid to every single person that Donald Trump has nominated. Now, I'm not saying they can't vote no, but their default position should be yes, we confirm, unless I hear something otherwise. And they have not heard anything otherwise. They haven't. Oh, but we have these accusations. Really? Who's making the accusation? Well, I can't tell you. They're anonymous. Then you don't have anything. You have nothing. Otherwise, this entire thing falls apart. Now, Lindsey Graham reversing within 24 hours and going from, I'm sorry, what did he say again on these accusations?
Some of these articles are very disturbing. He, obviously has a chance to defend himself here, but some of this stuff is going to be difficult. Time.
Really disturbing. It's going to be difficult. That was Lindsey Graham. And then 24 hours later, here he is smiling and happy because somebody told him, all of those accusations that you find so disturbing and difficult are anonymous. And here's Lindsey Graham saying, well, they're anonymous. I'm not going to make any kind of decision like this on an anonymous allegation. Thank you. And that is because Pete Hegseth went on the offensive. It's because Pete Hegseth started punching back. It's because Pete Hegseth said not just no, but hell no. Hell to the no. And that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do with these people. In fact, he also dispatched his lawyer on CNN to say the exact same thing, but in a much more lawyerly way. This is probably the most important and effective appearance you're going to see in the Pete Hegseth drama. And it didn't get as much attention, but that's why you come here, because we find the things that you should know.
That Pete Hegseth has done is denying that allegation of sexual assault. That was kind of one of the first things that came up after Trump picked him to be his defense secretary. He has denied it fervently. It was settled in an agreement with this woman in 2017. Yesterday, when you were talking to Jay Tapper, you said that you believed it's extortion. But of course, as you know, extortion is also a crime. So if you felt that it was extortion, why not go to the police at the time?
Well, it was a decision that we made, and the email from the attorney, it was something that I don't know if it quite rises to the level of a criminal extortion that the police would take it on, but I think it certainly does meet the definition under the California law for civil extortion. And it was something that we were considering at the time. And, quite frankly, with the violation of the agreement, if he is not confirmed as a Secretary of Defense, we may still bring a civil extortion claim against her.
So if he is not ultimately confirmed because of these allegations, you may take legal action against the person at the center of that agreement.
Absolutely. If the false claims of somebody that was part of an extortion that was then put out in violation of a settlement agreement ultimately causes him to lose his future employment opportunities, then yes, that is something that is worth bringing a lawsuit against her and her friend and potentially even the attorney for, yes.
All right. So that's the lawyer, if you didn't catch it, basically saying that these unnamed anonymous people who were claiming that Pete Hegseth may have been responsible for some sort of sexual misconduct, borderline assault, although, of course, those people never pressed any charges against Mr. Hegseth, but did accept a payment for a non-disclosure agreement. If their claims to the media end up harming Mr. Hegseth's future endeavors and ability to be Secretary of Defense, then they will go after them legally and sue them. Don't expect to see these people standing up there and doing a Christine Blasey Ford parade in front of this committee, unless, of course, the Democrats and the Soros people end up bankrolling them and saying, don't worry, go ahead and go out there, say what you need to say. We'll bankroll you if they end up suing you. I would not exclude that as a possibility here. All right. But the bottom line is Republicans, of all people, should not fall for this. All right. So that's where Lindsey Graham is. The other one is Joni Ernst. You might not know Joni Ernst. It's interesting. Joni Ernst, senator from Iowa, seems like again, perfectly nice person. Never met her, never talked to her. I think I've interviewed her once or twice before. I don't know a whole lot about Joni Ernst. And that's what's ironic about this. It's like the Streisand effect here for some of these senators. Don't know much about Joni Ernst, but because it appears she's standing in the way of Pete Hegseth, and many people are suggesting that she's doing it because she would rather be Secretary of Defense. And I assure you that ain't going to happen because Trump is not going to reward this kind of behavior. But because she is one of the people who will not commit to supporting Pete Hegseth, and in fact, it appears is working on the in the background, trying to get him to withdraw his name, suddenly we're all learning a lot more about Joni Ernst, probably stuff that she would have preferred people not know about her positions on the border bill, for example. There's video out there. We don't have time to show it because we got a full slate here, but she waxed poetic about how great that bipartisan border bill is. The one that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden thought was so great. And it was really her constituents' fault that it didn't go anywhere. And it was Trump's fault. Yeah. That's what Joni Ernst's position on the border bill was and on illegal immigration. And here she is talking about something that is near and dear to Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump's heart, and I believe near and dear to most voters who put them in their positions right now. And that has to do with transgender activists and their policies toward military inclusion. Apparently, Joni Ernst is all fine with as many transgender soldiers and sailors and Marines as possible. That's what I get from this. You tell me.
So the example of transgender people serving in our military, we have transgender people serving in our military. They will bleed red just as the rest of us. But I also take a stance that we should not be integrating transgender people into certain situations where it does make, if you have a female barracks and you have a transgender woman who has not transitioned, we shouldn't make the rest of the unit uncomfortable about that setting. There are certain accommodations we can make for that transgender individual. But if they bring value to our unit, if they have specialties that we can use, especially if we want to maintain an all volunteer force, we want to bring that talent into our services. And I know that's controversial, but again, I'm looking at what's good for our nation. And believe me, when we're facing a recruiting challenge right now, if people are physically willing and able to serve our country, we want them to do so.
Okay. Now, as much as I appreciate the sentiment that transgender individuals bleed red, white, and blue the same way as anyone else, and yeah, you're right. And if they're willing to serve and are physically capable of serving, then they should be allowed to serve as long as it doesn't disrupt operations of the military. Okay, that all sounds fine. It all sounds good, right? But let's just break this down for a moment. She's rationalizing this under the guise of, well, we're facing recruitment problems. We're facing recruitment challenges. People don't want to join the military. So if transgender people are willing to join the military, then that'll help us with our recruitment problem. And at no point is she stepping aside for a moment, pulling back about 30,000 feet and saying, hold on, maybe the reason that we're having a recruitment problem is because the face of our military looks more like Dylan Mulvaney right now instead of G.I. Joe. Maybe one of the reasons why we're having trouble recruiting people for the military who look, act, think, and fight like Pete Hegseth is because we're recruiting people who look, fight, and act like Caitlyn Jenner. After Caitlyn Jenner was a world-class athlete, of course. Not Bruce, Caitlyn. Listen, I think the argument can be made on both sides. My instinct is that when your military is exemplified by people like Pete Hegseth, that actually draws more warriors and fighters. Now, you need people of all types to run your military. You do. You need women, you need men. You need big, strong, strapping men. You need women who are really smart and able to fly a jet plane or maybe steer a submarine that doesn't require big, strong, strapping infantry style muscles like these guys have. All right. You do need all of those people in your military. But if you're saying that your recruitment problems are forcing you to recruit people who are actually going to repel the very types of warriors that you need, then maybe that's a bad idea. Maybe that makes a bad situation even worse. I'm not going to solve this for you right here. You all have an opinion. So do I. That's fine. What's important here is Joni Ernst, the senator from Iowa, who apparently is attempting behind the scenes to submarine Pete Hegseth's chances of being Secretary of Defense. She thinks that we need to have transgenders in the military. Pete Hegseth thinks that we need to not have transgender people in the military. Joni Ernst thinks we should have women in combat. Pete Hegseth thinks that we should not have women in combat. These are policy differences they have. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be refreshing? Wouldn't it be, I don't know, intellectually honest for Joni Ernst to stand up and say, I'm going to vote no on Pete Hegseth because I disagree with his policy on transgender inclusion, and I disagree with his policy on women in combat, and I disagree with his policy doing away with DEI policies at the Pentagon. Why don't you just do that, Joni Ernst? Why don't you just say that? Don't the people of your state deserve that? Don't we all deserve to hear that? Instead, you're playing this game, pretending like all of these questions in his past are really standing in the way. Nobody believes that. Why don't you just say no? By the way, add to the list, you don't think he's qualified. You're just fine with somebody with the resume, reputation, and schooling and experience that Lloyd Austin has, because all that experience really paid off in Afghanistan. But you don't think that the experience and education that Pete Hegseth has measures up to your standards for Secretary of Defense. Just say it. Why don't you say it? We all know why you won't say it. Because you face re-election in 2 years. You're up for 6 more years as senator from Iowa, and you know that you cannot go back to your voters and say, yep, I stood in the way of Donald Trump's Secretary of Defense because I want more transgender in the military. I want more DEI and CRT training in the military. I want women in combat. And I didn't think that someone like Pete Hegseth rises to the level of qualified for Secretary of Defense. You're terrified to say that. So instead, you're playing this game. And it's politics. It's DC. I get it. I just wonder why she was so willing to confirm Joe Biden's nominee for the Pentagon and not Donald Trump, the president and leader of her own party. That's just weird. Meanwhile, it looks like Pete Hegseth's 2 days of strategic pushback has paid off, at least for a little bit more time from his boss, Donald Trump. Trump put this out this morning on social media. Pete Hegseth is doing very well. His support is strong and deep, much more so than the fake news would have you believe. He was a great student, Princeton, Harvard educated, with a military state of mind. He will be a fantastic high-energy Secretary of Defense, which is 2 times the defense if you're keeping score at home. One who leads with charisma and skill. Pete is a winner, and there is nothing that can be done to change that. So where does this stand? I don't know. I was told by the smart set in this town, the conventional wisdom, that Pete Hegseth was already a dead man walking, that by this morning he'd be withdrawn and we'd already be talking about the nomination for Ron DeSantis. But of course, a couple of days ago, I told you that DeSantis thing is total BS, and that's not going to happen. So all I know is that I still stand by the idea that Donald Trump deserves to have his cabinet. And I think that the fact that not one senator has actually spoken out and said, nope, I'm not going to vote for him. Every single day that's the case means Pete Hegseth is closer and closer to having his hearing. And if he gets to his hearing, it will take quite an extraordinary, dramatic turn for him to not get out of that committee and not make it to the floor for a vote. Again, I don't know Pete Hegseth. I have no doubt that if he doesn't become Secretary of Defense, Donald Trump will have somebody else who can do the job, and it'll be just fine. But I approach you with just one humble notion. Donald Trump won. He did everything he was supposed to do to win, convincingly. And he's now, at lightning speed, selected his cabinet. And he's got a Republican majority in the Senate. Say it with me. Donald Trump deserves to have the team that he wants on day one. And it shouldn't be dragged out. It shouldn't be delayed. Get to the hearings starting the first week of January when the new Congress assembles. Let's get through it and let this president do what the American people want him to do. Why is that hard? I want you to open an IRA in gold with Birch Gold. And if you do, you'll get free silver shipped directly to your home. Yep, that's right. It's the most wonderful time of the year, right? Silver and gold, right? Literally. The only time of the year that Birch Gold gives away a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. And the best part is you don't have to pay a penny out of pocket. Yeah, just convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, and then Birch Gold is going to send you free silver coins directly to your home. Now, I know you think that the election's over and the good guy won, and so why do you have to worry about this? Everything's going to stabilize. Well, could I mention that we have $36 trillion in debt? I'd love to think that Donald Trump is going to be able to reverse that and fix that in just 4 years, but this is a bit of a long haul, and you need to take advantage of your ability to diversify right now. Take action by texting my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898. Do that before December 18th, and you'll get a free info kit on gold, and you'll claim your eligibility for free silver on qualifying purchases from Birch Gold. So do it before December 18th. Again, my name, Larry, Larry, to the number 989898. Get you some peace of mind that lasts longer than just 4 years.